I'm Gerald Bentley. Welcome into Wrestling Spotlight. We're coming at you on the Wrestling Spotlight TV network and also on the Fired Up network. Best place to see it, the True TV Plus app. You can get it now on Amazon, on Android, on Google Play, and in the Apple App Store. Totally free, the True TV Plus app. Today, we're joined by one of the legends of professional wrestling, one of the few members of a 3-generation family in pro wrestling. Baby Doll, the perfect 10. If you grew up watching the NWA Championship Wrestling from Georgia, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, you were everywhere back then.
I was. And what's really crazy is that short stint that I had with Dusty and Crockett was less than 2 years. So
Really?
my
Wow.
whole career was combined with world class Crockett and coming back with Larry Zbyszko was less than 3 years.
Wow. But I mean, so much history involved. I mean, starting out with the Von Erichsen World Class Championship Wrestling, going through just that run of luminaries.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah, and still a presence in professional wrestling. Your daughter is making waves in the newly rechristened National Wrestling Alliance.
Yes.
Mrs Starr.
Mrs Starr. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got to see her work. We were just in Utah last weekend. And she won the Women's Legend tournament there that they had in Utah for STF. Oh my gosh, the promoters, Darren and Jeremy, just a stellar weekend. We had such a good time. And she beat Lola, the adventurer, a little girl that looked just like Dora the Adventurer. Sure. Yeah, Dora the Explorer. And she had a great match. It was good. It was really good to see her work.
Yeah, and she incorporates some of that style, that traditional, say NWA style. So she's a great fit for Billy Corgan's relaunch of the NWA.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I like Billy's mindset on it. You know, this is, even though he's like a rock star, you know, lead man for the Smashing Pumpkins, is on tour. You know, he brings the wrestling ring with him and his crew so that they have matches set up while he's doing when he's doing his set. And then they're traveling all over. Alabama, Florida, they were going up to Pennsylvania. They've been in Missouri. So yeah, he's trying, and God bless him. I hope that, you know, he gets it all together, because it's definitely a really good project. And I love seeing how enthusiastic he is about it.
Now, I wanted to have you on because I think more than almost anyone, and it's insane, it was only a 3-year period. You really touched so many elements of professional wrestling from that era that still resonates to today. I mean, you go to a wrestling show, and I got to get on camera. You go to a wrestling show and do that, everyone knows what you're talking about. The Four Horsemen.
Oh, yes.
Right? And
it is.
You were there with them.
Right. I was there in the inception. I was right there in the studio when Arn did the promo for the Four Horsemen. The apocalypse was coming. So, and then I worked with Tully a little bit during that time, and then I came back and worked with Flair. I was truly blessed. I mean, I really did get to work, and still am working with the best of the best. So yeah, it's an honor and a privilege. I love it.
Now, just because I don't think most of the viewers are aware, how did you end up getting involved in professional wrestling? I know your family was in it.
When people say that they've been in professional wrestling all their lives, I literally have been in professional wrestling all my life. My mom and dad were professional wrestlers. My mom is Lorraine Johnson. My dad, Nick Roberts. They started promoting in Lubbock, Texas in 1962. I was born in February of 62. So my playpen was in the back room where they discussed finishes and smoked cigarettes and drank coffee before the matches. My mom sold tickets. My dad promoted. And then whenever my brother and I got old enough, we could like answer the phone and take reservations. And then we went into when we could make change, and we were smart enough to like make change for $1. We were in the concession pulling sodas and doing popcorn. And then when we could carry 4 folding steel chairs, we became part of the ring crew.
Okay.
So it was we were like a traveling circus. We went all over. My dad promoted in Lubbock specifically for like 22, almost 23 years, I guess. But then in summers we had spot shows where we had 2 rings, so we would pack up the 1 ring and 640 folding steel chairs and another trailer and all of our concession stuff. And we would go to like La Mesa and Levelland and Odessa and let me think. We went to Abilene a couple of times. So we promoted. And so it was, that was my dad's business. That's how I grew up, was with my dad on TV on Saturdays and promoting the shows and putting up poster cards. And it, for someone who absolutely loves wrestling, I was born into the perfect household.
Yeah. And then how did you end up getting involved with World Class Championship Wrestling with the Von Erichs and Fritz Von Erich, I guess?
Right. My parents were discussing like upcoming angles and stuff and what was going on in the business. And they were like in the kitchen. I think my dad was in the den and my mom was in the kitchen. And I was doing something in the living room. And they were talking about looking for a girl for Gino, because they had Sunshine had come in with Jimmy Garvin. Mm-hmm. And had done like so well. Oh my gosh. Jimmy Garvin and Sunshine just lit up Dallas. And Sunshine got to do the little vignettes where David Von Erich had her like washing the big Great Pyrenees dogs and, you know, just having her do like menial tasks, and she's mad and she doesn't want to be there. And during that time being with the Freebirds, she had some addiction problems. And was smart enough, thank goodness, that she went into rehab. Well, when she went into rehab, they brought in, to keep the storyline going and to keep the people really enthused with it, they brought in Stella Mae French, which was her truck driving aunt, who would beat up truck drivers in the parking lot with an axe handle just for fun. Great. So she was like this badass bitch. Yeah. And so back then, even though she was Gino's nemesis, Gino could not touch her. That was like a big no-no, that guys did not touch the girls. If they had like a mixed tag team, whenever the girls were working and one would tag out, then the male would come in and then the other guy would have to come in. It was never girls against guys ever. That was just taboo. So they needed to have a girl with Gino so that he could have someone fight her while he was doing other business. So I thought, wow, that would be perfect for me. Sure. So I went to, I stole my dad's black book. He actually had like the address book, the old timey one, and went down to a boyfriend's house and called. They had the number that had Sportatorium in it. And I had no idea who was going to answer the phone, no idea what I was going to say, but hey, why not throw my hat in the ring? Sure. So David Von Erich answered the phone, and I knew David for years before this. He was like the merch manager for Von Erichs, and I'd been selling T-shirts and pictures and everything for them for years. And whenever I needed more shirts or whatever, I would just call David, and he would send me more stuff. And then every week I'd send the money back to Dallas to him. So he answered the phone, and I just gave him the idea of, hey, you know, I heard my parents talking, and how would I work out? You know, maybe you could consider me, and that I'd really like the opportunity. And what do you think? Sure. Well, they were just getting ready to have a meeting with Fritz, and Fritz's office was upstairs. And he said, I'm going to pitch this by Fritz. He says, we're going to see how this likes. He says, I'll call you right back. So about 45 minutes later, he calls me back, and you can just tell in his voice, he's excited. Fritz loved the idea. Fritz thought it was perfect, that I was already in the business, that I had the look, I was big, I was strong, I was going to be perfect for what they wanted. So it was just being at the right place at the right time and having the look that they wanted. And the same thing like with Crockett. They were looking for a girl for Tully, and they had already done the promos for it and had little vignettes done, and had advertised for the Perfect 10 for Tully, and here I was in Florida. I had 2 shows to go for World Class, and then I was done. I wasn't on the booking sheet anymore. So those were the only 2 shows that I had left. So it was either I was going to go somewhere or I wasn't going anywhere at all because I was done with World Class. And I went and saw Michael Hayes, and because Michael Hayes was booking Florida at the time, and I kind of gave him the spiel like, hey, I was working in Dallas and like to continue working. They're not going to use me anymore, and that maybe you can use me. And he said that they were getting ready to close down Florida until the summertime, that it was slowing down, and that I needed to go see Dusty. That Dusty was in the next dressing room, and as to this day, I still remember it. Michael Hayes says, Dusty's getting ready to blow up the Carolinas. So I was like, oh, okay. So I went there, and here's Dusty sitting in the chair, and Tully's like standing off to the side, and said, hey, I heard, that you might be needing someone, and that I don't have anywhere to go after this. And I want to continue wrestling, and I don't want to have to go back to school, and maybe you could use me. And I had no idea that they were looking for a girl for Tully. And so we kind of discussed some things, and you could just see him nodding, like, okay. Well, whenever I had my match, I was just smart enough to realize that whenever I walked out, Dusty was standing on the outside of his dressing room door, and Tully was standing on the outside of his dressing room door. And I could see him like walk into the ring. And in my mind, I thought, if they're still there after my match, I've got the job.
Yeah.
If they're not standing out there, I didn't keep their interest, and I might as well just go back to Texas. Well, after my match with Stella and I beat her with a DDT, they were both standing outside the door. And I started getting phone calls like, when can you be in the Carolinas? And we've got this idea for you. And can you be there like the end of February? And then it was like mid-February. And then it was like the first week of February. And then Dusty actually called me and said, when can you be in the Carolinas? We need you now. We want to get you on TV. So I loaded up my car and drove across the United States, and started like the January 23rd, 24th, something like that for Crockett, and worked almost a full year with Tully. So, and then I switched and went with Dusty, and then and Flair. So it was, when Dusty says ride the lightning bolt, literally rode the lightning bolt.
Yeah. And did you realize at the time, I mean, I know probably not, right?
No.
That would be that impactful, and people would still look back and talk about some of those promos as being the best ever, talking about the best factions and how it changed the business.
We knew it was good because you just know, because the crowds were so hot everywhere we went. It was like sellouts. We knew, we just didn't know how good it was going to be. And just working with, like Rock and Roll Express. And when you look at the talent that Dusty brought in at that time, because he brought in Sting and Rock and Roll Express and Magnum and myself and Nikita, it was just, oh my gosh. And everything worked, and every match on the card meant something. And, people can say whatever they want to, but I actually saw Dusty as a genius. He made us all legends. He made us all a lot of money. And it's just a shame that through bookkeeper with Crockett that said that, and I'm not sure on the amount of money, but if you're Crockett Promotions and you think that you've got like $30 million in the bank and everything's going good and you're rolling, and you've actually only got $30,000 in the bank because the bookkeeper's lying to you because he's not able to manage the money. Was the demise of Crockett, was just through bookkeeping. It wasn't because of Dusty. Dusty was putting on phenomenal shows.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because now on Vice TV, The Rock's involved in it. They're running the documentary on who killed WCW, and honestly, when you take a look back, WCW was always kind of teetering, and it wasn't ever because of the wrestlers. The wrestling was great. I mean, years ago, I was a morning host in Cleveland, and WCW would come through Cleveland, and I had on WCW wrestlers each month, and they did really good business, and that was in WWF territory at the time, and they still
Oh,
were
yes.
trying well, but just
Right.
the underlying business structure, either with the Crockett's or when it became part of Time Warner and Ted Turner,
Right.
you had the executives that were kind of undermining it and never really had the chance to get up and running.
Right. They treated it people that aren't in wrestling treat wrestling differently than what it should be, and, they try and make it something that it's not, and they destroy it. So, it's either you love it and you follow the formula and have it work, or and unfortunately, like with money getting involved and people that had no clue. I think that the one thing that Crockett missed out on was the marketing.
Yeah.
Whenever everything there was so even, it was just so, Crockett had a chance, but through marketing and through putting the wrestlers in a different light, like with WrestleMania and having all the extra stars, Liberace and Vanna White, and the bringing in outsiders and having them sit in front row and making it seem like it was a whole lot, like wrestling was a whole new glorious thing.
Hmm.
Also with the marketing of like the wrestling rings and the little action figures,
Yep.
Crockett just never jumped on that boat because it wasn't in the traditional song. When they first came out with the wrestling ring, so many of us were like, really? And little dolls, we couldn't
Yeah.
imagine how popular they were going to be. And then when they sold like a million wrestling rings in like the first 2 weeks, we were like, oh, we missed that boat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, heck, there could have been baby doll perfect 10 fashion dolls there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it you
I
got to
was
give
gonna say I'm working
Vince
on some
credit.
action figures now. No, I'm
Okay.
actually in marketing.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm in the talks with some really cool stuff. So yeah, and it's cool. Like, and see, my 40-year anniversary actually
Really?
going to the
Wow.
ring will be in September. 40 years. Yes.
Well, and it's a different era now because you have the availability to watch the old programming and
Yes.
to really enjoy it and,
Oh
just
yes.
watch
Eh,
how good some of the work was, how good some of the promos were. And I definitely wanted to ask you because as it turns out, we're filming this just one day after 9 years ago, Dusty passed away. And
Right.
I went ahead and posted the Hard Times promo on Wrestling Spotlight.
Yep.
I
That
mean,
was
it's
built up to
still,
Starcade with his match with Flair. Yes.
yeah. I mean, still legendary. All wrestlers talk about it. MJF made a point of talking about it on an AEW show, and
Right.
obviously Dustin and Cody reference back to their dad a lot. Did you realize at the time he was doing those promos how impactful they would be?
Oh, yes. But I had no idea how much because back then everything was geared towards the next show. Like
Yeah,
for us, it would have been we were all gearing towards the bash, and then we had the build up to Starcade, and so it was always the next big event. So we didn't think like 5, 10, 20 years from now that it would be so popular because we were so focused on next week and okay, we've got Norfolk, Richmond, Baltimore, coming up. We need to really hit those towns, and then we've
yeah,
got Charlotte and Greensboro coming up after that. So it was always more like every week to 2 weeks was our site rather than years and years. Because 10 years from then, it wouldn't have mattered. What mattered was what we were going to draw the next time we were in that town.
sure. And it was a different era, right? There wasn't the
Oh
huge
yeah.
TV money. There wasn't the big guarantee contracts.
Well,
I
there
mean,
wasn't, and whether you drew a house or not is whether you got a good check.
yeah,
So it wasn't the guarantee, and if you got hurt, you got to sit home and make a couple of grand a week, and you didn't have to worry about it. You worried about putting food on your table and paying that rent and having being on the good cards, and um it there was no guarantees. You were all you did was look on the booking sheet for the next week and see that you were employed. That was the important thing, was if you were on the booking sheet the following week.
and it is great now that you have so many viable places for people to go and wrestle. It had to
Right.
hurt anybody that was involved in wrestling during the territory days. After WCW went out, I mean, there was years it was really just WWE, and a few people started to try territories, but
Right.
really outside of Ring of Honor, there wasn't much of anything going.
Well,
Now everything
there's
seems to be
always
popping back
independents
up.
and stuff. Yeah. There were always independents and places to go, but it seemed like maybe 2010
Yeah.
when territories like really started getting established and coming to light and being a viable way to rather than just being able to make 50 or $100, on a weekend because you're wrestling but you continue wrestling. Now there's really good money to make. There's good merch sales. There's fan fests and legend
Hmm.
shows and comic cons and wrestle cons. And so if you want to get out and promote yourself, you can really make some good money.
Yeah, and that is a huge impact because if you get a chance to go to a WrestleMania, it's
Oh yeah,
crazy. The whole city is taken over. I mean, this
it is.
past year in Philadelphia, between WrestleCon, WWE Universe, all the different events, all the independent shows there, it's really a week-long celebration of
Oh, it
wrestling. And
is.
you can say the same thing about really any of the major WWE or AEW pay-per-view events. They draw such a
And a
solar
diverse
system of
crowd,
wrestling. Hmm.
a diverse crowd. My daughter and I were up in Maryland for a signing and for Maryland Championship Wrestling, and there was a huge line for it was Adam Page and Lita,
Okay,
and there were probably 60, 70 people in line, and I'm like looking at the people, and I would have never thought that they were wrestling fans.
sure.
They just did not stand out to me as like, wow, I could pick, because usually you can pick out wrestling fans. You've got the mindset of what they look, and the people that were in line, even I was like, they don't look like wrestling fans. My daughter was like the same thing. It was just like it's gotten to be so diverse, and it's really cool. It's instead of like just, oh, you're a wrestling fan, it's like, oh, you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's good.
What's the number one question fans ask you about when they see you at conventions or at signings?
Um, I mostly get the stories of sitting on the couch with the grandparents or the parent that's no longer there,
Hmm.
and the memories that come back of that Saturday afternoon when like grandpa was there 2 o'clock, or let's say like 6:05 on Saturday watching wrestling, and Flair is cheating again, and oh my god, I can't stand it. He goes over and shuts off the TV, and I'm never watching wrestling again. But he's there that following week and he's watching wrestling, and I love hearing the memories of just the families and of the people that are no longer here, and just the memories just by seeing me, and I'll have a bunch of pictures laid out and they're
Yeah.
like, I remember this and I remember this, and oh, my mom loved Dusty, or it's just, I love that memories. I love being part of that. I love being part of someone's home. Like maybe my posters on the back wall of a bedroom
Sure.
somewhere still, and it's cool. It's amazing.
Well, and feeling that connection too, and like Cody has in his entrance song Kingdom, wrestling has more than one royal family, and your family is definitely one of those because there's not too many families that have the connection that you do. Let's
Oh,
go
I
ahead.
know, it's
Yeah,
great. It's really cool. Yes, because and especially like with my daughter, with her, I wanna say legacy,
sure.
like 3 out of 4 of her grandparents wrestled, Grizzly Smith,
Hmm.
and then my mom and dad, Lorraine Johnson and Nick Roberts. Then both of her parents, Sam Houston and Baby Doll.
Yep.
Jake the Snake Roberts is her uncle, and Rockin' Robin, WWF Women's World Champion, had beat Sherry Martel there in France, is
Uh-huh.
her aunt. So it's not quite as good as the Samoans, but it's pretty close.
That's a heck of a bloodline. Hey, let's go ahead to the championship round. We got the wrestling spotlight belt for you. Just a few
Okay.
quick questions.
All
What
right.
was your take from Sting just finally retiring this past year and doing so in a crazy extreme kind of match?
I loved it. I loved how he got his sons involved. I loved how much his sons looked like him
Mm-hmm.
and took on the persona. I don't know if I was more excited for Sting or for his sons that were able to don the makeup and the costuming and get some moves in. I was more impressed by his sons than anything. I loved it. It was perfect.
That's great. What was your favorite memory from the Crockett Promotions days?
Oh my gosh, my favorite memory. God, there's so many. Um, Probably the first time that Tully and I did the vignette where they flew me in on the Learjet and I
Okay.
came down the gangplank and the limousine and Tully and I just talking in the back of the thing of like how this is going to go and how much they were going to push us and that it was going to be money and that it was gonna be good. I think just that afternoon, that Sunday morning, it was, oh my gosh, I think it was like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. We met over there at Butler Aviation in Charlotte and to do the vignette. I think being a part of that and seeing the production crew and seeing everything being put together, that was cool. That was one of the best.
Is this a new golden age of professional wrestling right now?
A new golden age. Oh, absolutely. With everything with NWA coming to light, of course, with AEW and the money that's being spent and how many people are working for that promotion, and of course WWE always just on top and putting out a stellar uh, production every
Yeah.
single week, every single time. I don't see how it couldn't be. Yeah, it's because you've got independence, you've got NWA, you've got AEW, you've got WWE. Yes,
Yeah. No, great.
definitely. Yeah.
And finally, will we hear and your new NWA Women's World Champion, Ms. Starr?
I truly hope so. I hope that it's building up to that. I know that she has worked so hard for them over the past year and a half and made all the shows and done everything that they wanted her to do. Um, I don't see how it couldn't be,
Okay.
but with wrestling, you just don't, there's no for sures, there's no certainty. You just do the best you can. And hopefully, hopefully, I'll get a call from them and say, hey, we got a ticket for you. We
Yeah.
really want you to be at this show. And then I'll know. But otherwise, I go anyway. So it's good. But I really and truly, Kenzie Page is an amazing athlete. Her and
Yeah.
Kylie with sisters, the tag team. In fact, Samantha wrestled against them. Samantha and Ella worked against Samantha and Ella Envy
Yeah.
worked against Kylie and Kenzie in NWA in Knoxville in an extreme, no, a street fight.
Uh-huh.
And Kayla got bopped on the head and had blood going down her face. It's got a
Yeah.
big goose egg over her eye. And I was like, girl, what's going on? She said, it's a street fight. It's got to be this way. So it's like, okay.
All right. Well, there we go. And hey, finally, where can fans get in touch with you? What's the best way to stay connected and find out if there's some new merchandise coming out, or just keep
Okay.
in touch and reminisce?
Well, my first name is Nicola, Nickla. So if you Google Nicola, you'll pull up all my Facebook. I've got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Twitter and Facebook, I'm pretty social on that, and my husband's not too thrilled with it, but
Uh-huh.
I love talking wrestling. I love wrestling. I love the fans. I love hearing their stories. It's a good way for me to get booked and promoting all my stuff and my pictures. And
Sure.
um, so just pretty much just Google me and you'll find me.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, Baby Doll, thanks so much for joining us here on Wrestling Spotlight. It was great to take a look back, especially, like I said, it's 9 years almost to the day that Dusty passed away. And as you pointed out, it's also Magnum TA's birthday was just
Right.
a day
So
or two
bittersweet.
ago, and
It's
so
just,
much
yeah, I
history in
cannot
wrestling.
believe, unless Dusty chose that day to pass away so that Magnum could
Yeah.
toast him every day, like every year. But Yeah, Dusty is sorely missed, and especially at like the legend shows that I do and stuff. Um it almost seems like something's missing sometimes, and it's definitely Dusty.
Yeah, but it's so great. I mean, as a longtime fam fan of Dusty Rhodes and the Rhodes family, it was so great to be at WrestleMania and see Cody win that WWE championship
Right.
and get to hold up the belt that his dad didn't get a chance to win.
And then for me, I'm glad that he wasn't like Dusty wasn't in a hotel room by himself and passed away. If there
Yeah,
was any solace in it, that Michelle was there with him and he was at home and instead of like in a hotel room by himself, that would have been so tragic. So
oh
if
yeah,
there's any comfort in it, that's kind of my comfort is that Michelle was there with him because he just loved her to death. He really
sure.
did.
Well, and the memories live on. I mean, the impact is indelible.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time. We really
Yeah,
appreciated you
finally
having
we
you
had to
on.
reschedule.
Yeah,
We had to reschedule a couple of times. So
yeah,
finally we got together. So
absolutely.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. And the best way to tune in to Wrestling Spotlight is to get that True TV app. It's available anywhere you get your apps: Amazon, Roku, Google, Android, and the Apple App Store. For Baby Doll the Perfect 10, I'm Gerald Bentley. Thanks for joining us here on Wrestling.